Okay, Assalamualaikum and hello. And I hope everyone is in great condition. So my name is Wan Muhammad Mukhliff and today my groups and I will present to you the Fukushima nuclear disaster. So this is my team groups, which is Khairul Izzat, Siti Jumaiah, Fatin, Izzati, and Siti Roshaiyu. So next is before we begin dig deeper into Fukushima nuclear disaster, I will actually give to you all of you some piece of information on what is Fukushima nuclear disaster is all about. So the Fukushima nuclear disaster refers to a series of events that occurred in March 11, 2011. It happened in Fukushima Prefecture, Japan. So it was triggered by massive earthquake and tsunami, which severely damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. So the disaster began when a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck off the northeastern coast of Japan. The earthquake caused the tsunami with wave of about 40 meters height, which overwhelmed the plant's civil defense. The flooding the facility and disabling its cooling system. So this led to a series of equipment failures and nuclear meltdown in three of the plant reactors. So the meltdown occurred when the reactors course overheated due to loss of cooling and subsequently inability to control the release of heat and radiation. As a result, the radioactive material were released into the atmosphere, the sea, and contaminating the surrounding environment and prompting the evacuation of nearby residents. So this is the pictures of the release of into the sea and into atmosphere. So the Japanese government declared a state emergency and establish an exclusion zone and around the plant evacuation. So this disaster had significant environmental, social, economic impacts. It raised concern in about the safety of nuclear power worldwide and led to a reassessment of nuclear energy policies in many countries. And that's all for me. So I give to my friend. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. So I'm going to briefly explain about the specific toxicant release during the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Okay, next. So to be specific, there are 4 toxicants that have been released during that day. The first one is cesium-137, which is a radioactive isotope. They are easily absorbed by the plants and animals through skin, lung, and digestive system. This toxicant is long-term contamination, which is the half-life about 30 years and then it's going to emit gamma radiation, increased risk of the cancer when exposed to this toxicant. The second toxicant is iodine-131, which is a short-lived radioactive isotope, approximately about 8 days, hazardous when inhaled or ingested, tend to accumulate in the thyroid gland, causes thyroid cancer and other thyroid-related diseases. So the third toxicant is strontium-90, SR90, which is a radioactive isotope of chemically similar to the calcium. The half-life of about 28 years. This toxicant will accumulate in bones and teeth. Prolonged exposure lead to bone cancer and other bone-related diseases. The last toxicant is plutonium-239, highly toxic and long-lived radioactive isotope, which is can cause long-term contamination of the environment. The half-life about this plutonium is about 24,100 years, which is very long. But however, luckily, a very small amount released on that day. The exposure to this plutonium increase the risk of cancer, particularly on lung cancer. Thank you. That's all from me. I pass to my friend.
Assalamualaikum to all of you. I'm Siti Jumaiah. I will explain about clinical implication. Okay, next. Okay, first is radiation sickness, also known as acute radiation syndrome or ARS, can occur when a person is exposed to high level of ionizing radiation over a short period. ARS is characterized by several stages, including the prodromal stage, latent stage, manifest illness stage, and recovery or death stage. The severity and specific symptom depends on the level of radiation exposure. In the case of Fukushima nuclear disaster, immediate death due to acute radiation sickness occur among workers and the general population. The symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, fatigue, diarrhea, and a weakened immune system. Okay, next. Next is a psychological effect. The Fukushima nuclear disaster had significant psychological effect on the individual and communities affected by the incident. The most psychological implication for the exposed population is post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. This incident led to increased mental health issue and higher rate of PTSD among evacuated individuals loss of social family tie, as well as stigmatization. They face residents of Fukushima and surrounding area experience heightened anxiety and fear due to concern about long-term health effect from release of radioactive material. The loss due to concern about the loss of home and stability contribute of depression and feeling of isolation. The incident caused loss of a social network and support system, leading to increased feeling of loneliness and isolation. Okay, next I will pass to my friends. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Noor Fatin Izzati binti Abu Hashim. I will present on cancer risk. From Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, we can predict that the toxicants such as iodine-131 will increase the risk of thyroid cancer, while exposure to cesium-137 and plutonium-239 will increase the risk of various cancers including lung, breast, thyroid and leukemia. Next slide please. According to the global report on Fukushima nuclear accident details held with by WHO, World Health Organization, in terms of specific cancers for people based on age, gender and proximity to the nuclear plant or the most contaminated location, the estimated increased risk over what would normally be expected are all solid cancers around 4% in female exposed as infants, breast cancer around 6% in female exposed as infants, leukemia around 7% in males exposed as infants, and thyroid cancer up to 70% in female exposed as infants. For people in the second most contaminated location of Fukushima, the estimated risks are approximately one-half of those in the location with the highest dose. While for the emergency workers, around 2/3 of emergency workers are estimated to have cancer risk in line with the general population, while 1/3 is estimated to have an increased risk. Next slide, please. In addition, the 2020 latest report by the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effect of Atomic Radiation indicated that since the UNSEER 2013 report, no adverse health effect among Fukushima residents have been documented that could be directly attributed to radiation exposure from the accident. Thank you. For the next part, I will pass to my friend.
Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone. My name is Siti Roshaiyu. Next, I will explain about what necessary actions to be taken after the disaster to prevent from toxicants exposure. Next slide. First, the evacuation and relocation. In the immediate aftermath of the disaster, those are living within a 20 kilometer to 30 kilometer radius of the nuclear power plant were issued evacuation orders. The residents were instructed to leave their homes and relocate to safer areas. Evacuated individuals were initially relocated to the temporary shelter, which were established in a safer area outside the high-risk zone. These locations were chosen based on their distance from the nuclear plant and lower radiation levels. As the evacuation continued, long-term relocation plans were developed to provide permanent housing and facilitate the return of residents to a safe and radiation-controlled environment. Restricted access zones and exclusion zones were established around the damaged nuclear plants to minimize exposure to radiation. This area were closely monitored and controlled to prevent unauthorized entry and ensure public safety. Next slide is education and public awareness. This play a crucial role during after the Fukushima nuclear disaster to mitigate its effect and protect humans' health. By providing accurate and timely information about the radiation risk, health effect, and protective measures help to raise public awareness and promote informed decision making. For example, during the disaster, timely and clear communication through various channels, including emergency alert, broadcast media, and official announcement, was crucial to inform the affected population about the evacuation orders, routes, and necessary precautions. For children, educational programs were implemented to raise awareness among children about radiation safety and promote healthy habits, as well as psychological support service were provided on children. Next slide. Decontamination effort. Decontamination of affected area, including cleaning surfaces, removing contaminated soil, and implementing protective measures, will help reduce long-term exposure to radiation. For example, there are some of the measures undertaken by the Japanese government and relevant authorities, such as decontamination of soil and vegetation, such as removal of topsoil and soil washing, decontamination of buildings and infrastructure, radioactive waste management, where they collect and place the radioactive water in designated location. And next is monitoring and verification of radiation levels in the environment, and experts are involved in conducting independent assessment and also long-term planning and research to develop new decontamination technique and long-term remedies. For next slide, I'll pass to my friends. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Continuation of necessary action to mitigate Fukushima nuclear accident. Japanese authorities enforce a strict monitoring of the food chain for food safety measures. This includes agricultural products, seafood, livestock, and this strict enforcement is important to ensure the safety of the food supply. Japanese authorities also restricted the consumption and distribution of some products in certain prefectures or areas found to contain radionuclides exceeding Japan's provisional regulation value. Next slide, please. Furthermore, Japanese authorities also carry out regular monitoring of radiation levels in the environment with strict enforcement of existing regulation, such as monitoring of water supply. This is an important component of the long-term goal of decreasing radiation exposure to be as low as possible for public health. Screening programs were established to detect signs of disease caused by radiation exposure, such as thyroid cancer. An example of this is the Fukushima Health Management Survey, which aims to assist in the long-term health management of Fukushima residents. This program consists of comprehensive health check, thyroid ultrasound examination, and public health management. A special medical follow-up for emergency workers related to the nuclear accident is also implemented to screen for radiation exposure among workers. Next slide, please. For psychological support, mental health care facilities and interventions were established for the affected population. For example, mental health support team from Fukushima Medical University has been performing brief counseling for evacuees at risk of psychiatric disorder, such as post-traumatic stress disorder or depression every year since disaster. Fukushima Kokoro no Kei Center, which is a major facility with well-trained psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, and occupational therapists, also began to provide mental health intervention programs since 2012. This facility actively provides outreach service and support group intervention for evacuees. To conclude, Fukushima accident will be remembered as one of the worst events in the history of nuclear power. The disaster posed many negative impacts on Japanese people. However, necessary intervention has been executed and the process is still ongoing to mitigate the harmful effect of the disaster. That's all from our group. Thank you.